What do you think of Putin saying that justification for continuing the war is denazification?
I thought it was one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. I didn't understand what it meant. Denazification?
It literally means what it sounds like.
You know, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I hate that whole conversation because it's not real. It's just ad hominem. It's a way of associating someone with an evil regime that doesn't exist anymore. But in point of fact, Nazism, whatever it was, is inseparable from the German nation. It was a nationalist movement in Germany. There were no other Nazis, right? There's no book of Nazism. Like, I want to be a Nazi. What is it? What does it mean to be a Nazi? There's no idea. There's no Mein Kampf is not Das Kapital, right? Mein Kampf is like, to the extent I understand it, it's like he's pissed about the Treaty of Versailles. Whatever. I'm very anti-Nazi. I'm merely saying there isn't a Nazi movement in 2024. It's a way of calling people evil. Okay, Putin doesn't like nationalist Ukrainians. Putin hates nationalism in general, which is interesting. And of course he does. He's got 80 whatever republics and he's afraid of nationalist movements. He fought a war in Chechnya over this. So I understand it, but I have a different, I'm for national, I'm for American nationalism. So like I disagree with Putin on that. But calling them Nazis, it's like, I thought it was childish.
Well, I do believe that he believes it.
So that's so interesting. I agree with that. I was listening to this because in the United States, everyone's always calling everyone else a Nazi. You're a Nazi. Okay. But I was listening to this and I was like, this is the dumbest sort of not convincing line you could take. And I sat there and listened to him talk about Nazis for like 8 minutes. And I'm like, I think he believes this.
Yeah. And I actually, having had a bunch of conversations with people who are living in Russia, they also believe it. Now, there's technicalities here, which the word Nazi, the World War II is deeply in the blood of a lot of Russians and Ukrainians.
I get it.
So you're using it as almost a political term. Yes. The way it's used in the United States also, like racism and all this kind of stuff. So you can really touch people if you use the Nazi.
I think that's totally right.
But it's also, to me, a really disgusting thing to do.
I agree.
Because, and also to clarify, there is neo-Nazi movements in Ukraine, but just very small. You're saying that there's this distinction between Nazi and neo-Nazi. Sure. But it's a small percentage of the population, a tiny percentage. They have no power in government. I have seen no data to show they have any influence on Zelensky and the Zelensky government at all. So really when Putin says denazification, I think he means nationalist movements.
I think you're right. And I agree with everything you said. And I do think that the Second World War occupies a place in Slavic society, Polish society, Central Eastern Europe, that it does not occupy in the United States. And you can just look at the death totals, tens of millions versus less than 500,000. So it's like this eliminated a lot of the male population of these countries. So of course it's still resonant in those countries. I get it. I've watched the misuse of words, weaponization of words for political reasons for so long that I just don't like, and though I do engage in it sometime, and I'm sorry, I don't like just dismissing people in a word. Oh, he's a Nazi, he's a liberal or whatever. It's like, tell me what you mean. What don't you like about what they're doing or saying? And Nazi especially, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
What troubled me about that is because he said that that's the primary objective currently for the war. And that because it's not grounded in reality, it makes it difficult to then negotiate peace. Because what does it mean to get rid of the Nazis in Ukraine? So he'll come to the table and say, well, okay, I will agree to do ceasefire once the Nazis are gone. Okay, so can you list the Nazis?
Totally agree. Plus, can you negotiate with a Nazi?
Right, exactly.
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
It was very strange, but maybe it was perhaps had to do with speaking to his own population and also probably trying to avoid the use of the word NATO as the justification for the war.
Yes, that's all. Of course, I don't know, but I suspect you're right on both counts. But I would say it points to something that I've thought more and more since I did that interview, which was 2 weeks ago, I guess. I didn't think he was as a PR guy, not very good. He's not good at telling his own story. the story of the current war in Ukraine is the eastward expansion of NATO and scaring the shit out of the Russians with NATO expansion, which is totally unnecessary, doesn't help the United States. NATO itself doesn't help the United States. And so I'm not pro-Russian for saying that. I'm pro-American for saying that. And I think that's a really compelling story because it's true. He did not tell that story. He told some other story that I didn't fully understand. Again, I'm not Russian. He's speaking to multiple audiences around the world. I'm not sure what he hoped to achieve by that interview. I will never know. But I did think that, like, this guy is not good at telling his story. And I also think, honestly, on the basis of a lot, I know this, very isolated during COVID. Very. We keep hearing that he's dying of this or that disease. He's got ALS. I don't know. I'm not his doctor. There's a ton of lying about it. I know that. But one thing that's not a lie is that he was cloistered away during COVID. I know this. And only dealing with 2 or 3 people. And that makes you weird. It's so important to deal with a lot of people, to have your views challenged. And you see this with leaders who stay in power too long. He's been in power 24 years, effectively. He's done it. There's been upsides, I think, for Russia, the Russian economy, Russian life expectancy, but there are definitely downsides. And one of them is you get weird and you get autocratic